The audience at The Late Show with Stephen Colbert expected a light-hearted evening filled with laughs, witty commentary, and perhaps a few behind-the-scenes anecdotes from one of Hollywood's most respected directors. Ron Howard, the Oscar-winning filmmaker behind classics like A Beautiful Mind and Apollo 13, was welcomed warmly by the cheering crowd, but what started as an ordinary late-night interview soon turned into an unexpected and tense exchange. This sudden clash between host and guest shocked viewers in the studio and, later, millions more who would see clips circulate online. Colbert began with friendly banter, complimenting Howard on his decades-long career and his ability to transition from beloved child actor on The Andy Griffith Show to one of the industry's most accomplished directors. Howard responded with his trademark humility, giving credit to mentors, collaborators, and even the lessons he learned on set as a young performer. The mood was initially cheerful, but subtle tension surfaced when Colbert pivoted toward more personal questions, which Howard seemed reluctant to explore on live television. The conversation took a sharp turn when Colbert jokingly pressed Howard about Hollywood politics, suggesting that some of his films carried unintentional political messages. While Colbert framed it as a light tease, Howard appeared visibly uncomfortable. He clarified that he approaches storytelling with authenticity rather than agendas, emphasizing that human stories transcend political labels. However, Colbert, known for his sharp wit and occasional provocations, doubled down, pressing further with a smirk that suggested he was trying to spark a reaction. At first, the director tried to diffuse the tension with polite laughter, but the repeated interruptions and insinuations about hidden motives in his films began to wear thin. Howard's responses grew more measured and serious, signaling that he didn't find the line of questioning amusing. The audience picked up on the subtle change in energy, their laughter turning into uneasy silence as Colbert's barbs escalated. The light-hearted atmosphere that defines late-night TV was slipping, and the room braced for what might come next. Howard attempted to steer the conversation back toward his latest project, a historical drama that he described as deeply personal and a tribute to resilience in the face of adversity. Yet Colbert, perhaps sensing the brewing conflict or perhaps intentionally amplifying it for entertainment value, interrupted once more with a sarcastic remark that appeared to belittle the significance of Howard's work. This moment seemed to strike a nerve, as Howard's smile faded and his tone shifted into a stern and uncharacteristically defensive stance. The director, usually known for his calm and thoughtful demeanor, directly confronted Colbert about the disrespect he felt. He explained that while comedy and satire had their place, dismissing years of hard work with casual jabs crossed the line. The crowd gasped, torn between loyalty to their charismatic host and admiration for the veteran filmmaker who rarely displayed such raw emotion in public. The tension was now undeniable, and even Colbert appeared momentarily caught off guard by Howard's pointed words. Colbert tried to recover with a joke, brushing off the seriousness by gesturing theatrically toward the cameras, but Howard wasn't in the mood for levity. His frustration seemed genuine, and he reminded Colbert that creative work represents not only individual passion but also the contributions of hundreds of people behind the scenes. The director's voice carried conviction, and the audience, sensing the authenticity, responded with supportive applause. The applause, however, seemed to further irritate Colbert, who wasn't used to losing control of his stage. What happened next solidified the interview as one of the most talked about moments in late-night history. Colbert attempted to pivot again, this time making a pointed reference to Howard's reputation for being too safe in Hollywood. He implied that some critics viewed Howard as avoiding risk in favor of broad, audience-friendly stories. The comment, intended to provoke, hit its mark. Howard, visibly exasperated, leaned forward and challenged the assumption, detailing how he had taken risks with narrative choices, budgets, and themes throughout his career. That discussion escalated into a heated back and forth, with Howard passionately defending his artistic integrity while Colbert, playing devil's advocate, continued pushing buttons. The studio audience, caught between discomfort and fascination, sat in stunned silence punctuated by occasional nervous laughter. The tension was palpable, like watching two skilled debaters sparring on a stage that was never meant for confrontation. Colbert's smirk faded as Howard's intensity grew, revealing that the playful banter had now transformed into a serious clash of perspectives. Finally, after yet another jab that seemed to question the sincerity of his career choices, Howard had enough. His composure cracked, and with an expression of frustration rarely seen on his face, he stood up from his chair. The cameras tried to follow as he announced that he wasn't interested in participating in what he called a mockery of his life's work. The crowd erupted in gasps and whispers as the director, without waiting for Colbert's response, walked off the stage. The band, unsure whether to play, sat frozen in the moment. The silence in the studio after Ron Howard exited was deafening. Colbert, normally quick on his feet, hesitated before addressing the crowd. He forced a smile and muttered a joke about directors being dramatic, but it fell flat. The audience didn't laugh. They seemed unsettled by what had just unfolded. For a late-night show accustomed to controlled chaos and carefully staged spontaneity, this was uncharted territory. Clips of Howard's dramatic walkout would soon flood social media, but in that moment, Colbert looked visibly shaken, realizing the gravity of the clash. Behind the scenes, producers scrambled, unsure how to handle the fallout. Some suggested cutting the segment entirely from broadcast, while others argued it would inevitably leak and therefore should be aired in full to avoid accusations of censorship. Meanwhile, Colbert pressed on with the show, bringing out the next guest with forced energy. Yet the mood never fully recovered. Viewers at home, when the episode eventually aired, noted the shift in tone and the unease that lingered throughout the rest of the broadcast. Howard's walkout wasn't just a spontaneous reaction to a bad joke. It reflected deeper frustrations many creatives feel about being misunderstood or trivialized. Interviews are supposed to celebrate artistry, not dismantle it for sport. For a man like Howard, who has spent decades quietly shaping stories that inspire audiences, being reduced to a punchline cut deeply. His decision to leave was as much about dignity as it was about frustration, a refusal to let his work be misrepresented on such a visible stage. In the days that followed, media outlets seized on the moment. Headlines screamed about a meltdown, a feud, and even suggested Howard's career was under scrutiny. Tabloids painted the clash as Hollywood ego versus late-night satire, while more measured outlets acknowledged the genuine tension between art and comedy. The narrative spiraled, with fans, critics, and industry insiders weighing in. Some defended Colbert as a provocateur doing his job, while others applauded Howard for standing up for himself in a culture that often mocks sincerity. Social media amplified the incident to staggering proportions. Hashtags like #RonHoward and #ColbertClash trended for days, with countless clips replayed, remixed, and analyzed. Fans dissected body language, tone of voice, and the precise moment when Howard's patience snapped. Some created memes poking fun at the dramatic exit, while others circulated heartfelt posts praising the director's courage. The online discourse turned the moment into a cultural flashpoint, sparking debates about respect for artists, the role of late-night comedy, and the fine line between humor and hostility. Howard himself stayed mostly silent in the immediate aftermath. Known for his professionalism, he refrained from fueling the controversy with public comments. Instead, he focused on promoting his film through other outlets, where he was met with warmth and respect. When asked indirectly about the Colbert incident, Howard simply stated that he values meaningful conversations and prefers to highlight the collaborative spirit of filmmaking. His restraint stood in stark contrast to the frenzy of speculation swirling around him. Colbert, on the other hand, addressed the issue during a monologue days later. He attempted to reframe the confrontation as a misunderstanding, insisting that his intention was never to insult Howard or diminish his career. He sprinkled the explanation with humor, but there was a noticeable tone of sincerity when he admitted that perhaps the jokes had crossed the line. The studio audience applauded, though some critics questioned whether the apology was genuine or simply damage control in response to public backlash. Industry insiders began weighing in, offering a range of perspectives. Some late-night veterans argued that Colbert's job is to push buttons and create viral moments, while directors and actors defended Howard's reaction as a natural response to being undermined. Prominent filmmakers tweeted their support, reminding audiences that the art of storytelling deserves respect, even in comedic settings. The debate highlighted a cultural divide: the expectation of constant entertainment versus the dignity of serious creative work. Interestingly, the controversy ended up boosting interest in Howard's film. Audiences who might not have paid attention before were now curious to see the project that sparked such passion in him. Advance ticket sales rose, and early screenings drew enthusiastic crowds. In interviews that followed, Howard emphasized the themes of perseverance and human resilience in the film, subtly connecting them to his own experience of standing firm during the Colbert clash. What was initially a setback had transformed into unexpected publicity. The late-night industry also took note of the incident. Producers across networks discussed how far hosts should go when teasing or provoking their guests. While conflict might generate headlines, it also risks alienating respected figures who may be reluctant to appear in the future. The delicate balance between comedy and cruelty became a hot topic, with some suggesting that boundaries needed to be revisited in an era where viral moments can define careers. Howard's walkout became a cautionary tale for both hosts and producers. Howard's departure also sparked conversations about professionalism under pressure. Some viewers admired his refusal to tolerate disrespect, seeing it as a lesson in self-worth. Others argued that walking off a live show was unprofessional, suggesting he could have endured the questions with more patience. But Howard's supporters countered that enduring constant provocation only reinforces a culture where artists must accept mockery to be considered good sports. The split opinion reflected a broader tension in society about standing firm versus keeping the peace. Meanwhile, fans revisited Howard's career with renewed appreciation. Clips from his iconic performances as Opie Taylor and Richie Cunningham resurfaced online, alongside montages of his most acclaimed directorial works. Many noted that Howard had consistently avoided scandal throughout his decades in Hollywood, making his sudden outburst all the more striking. The juxtaposition of his long reputation for grace with this rare moment of frustration made the story even more compelling, proving that even the most composed professionals have breaking points. As weeks passed, the storm began to settle. Howard resumed his promotional tour, while Colbert returned to his usual brand of satire and political humor. But the memory of the clash lingered. Fans who attended the live taping recounted the intensity of the moment, describing it as both uncomfortable and unforgettable. For them, it wasn't just television, it was witnessing history unfold. Their first-hand accounts circulated online, cementing the incident as one of the most dramatic moments in late-night TV. Interestingly, some analysts suggested that the exchange symbolized a generational divide. Howard, representing old-school Hollywood values of respect, humility, and earnest storytelling, clashed with Colbert's postmodern, irony-driven approach to entertainment. The two worldviews collided in real time, and the fallout highlighted how comedy and culture have shifted. The audience's mixed response reflected society's uncertainty about which values to uphold, sincerity and reverence for craft, or the constant pursuit of humor at any cost. Howard eventually addressed the incident more openly in a long-form podcast interview. He admitted that while he regretted the confrontation escalating so publicly, he did not regret walking off. He explained that in that moment, he felt his work was being dismissed in a way that was unacceptable, and leaving was the only way to preserve his integrity. His calm reflection contrasted with the heated emotions of the night itself, showing that he had processed the event thoughtfully and without lingering resentment. Colbert, too, offered further reflection in a later interview. He acknowledged that he thrives on tension and improvisation, but confessed that he had misread Howard's boundaries. He admitted that in pursuit of comedic moment, he failed to recognize when the line had been crossed. His candidness earned him some redemption in the eyes of fans who had criticized him. The admission humanized Colbert, reminding viewers that even seasoned entertainers can miscalculate and unintentionally push too far. The incident also prompted networks to quietly revisit their guest relations strategies. Producers began briefing hosts more thoroughly about which topics to avoid, particularly with guests known for their sensitivity or seriousness. While spontaneity remained a cornerstone of late-night television, there was a newfound awareness of the risks involved. Howard's walkout effectively reshaped the backstage culture, ensuring that respect and collaboration were given more priority in planning interviews. It became an unspoken industry lesson in boundary management. Fans of both men eventually found humor in the situation. Memes and parodies emerged, playfully exaggerating the walkout with animated recreations, satirical skits, and even mashups with scenes from Howard's own films. While the jokes kept the story alive, they also softened its edges, turning a tense confrontation into a shared cultural joke. In this way, the controversy came full circle. What began as a failed attempt at comedy eventually evolved into a different kind of humor, created by the audience itself. Years from now, the Howard-Colbert clash will likely be remembered not as a stain on either man's career, but as an iconic pop culture moment. It revealed the raw humanity behind polished television personas and reminded audiences that even seasoned professionals can lose composure. For Howard, it was a rare glimpse of fiery passion behind his usual calm demeanor. For Colbert, it was a humbling reminder of the responsibility that comes with wielding humor. Together, they inadvertently created late-night history. In the end, both men moved forward, their careers intact and their reputations largely unscathed. But the night Ron Howard stormed off Stephen Colbert's stage will live on in countless clips, articles, and conversations. It wasn't just about a disagreement, it was about the collision of values, the fragility of respect, and the power of standing one's ground. For audiences, it offered drama, debate, and a story that transcended a single episode of television. And for Howard, it was proof that sometimes, walking away speaks louder than words.